Kyle Rittenhouse, 17 years old white boy that murdered two or three black kids in Michigan during a protest. He was acquitted on all charges. Jordan Penny, I think that's his name, he choked out that black homeless man on a train in New York recently, was also acquitted of charges. So guess what?
Neither one of those was killed. Stop.
But he was pointing out like why there could be, I know you don't think it's true, but there could be like a sense of white power supremacy in this country, because sometimes when white people do certain crimes, they're not held to the same extent as black people or other people do. And you were asking him to give names. I gave you two, and one was actually the same age as the guy, the black boy that just killed the white guy. He was acquitted of all his charges. He was also a 17-year-old white boy in Wisconsin.
Happens all the time.
And it's like, well, why was he acquitted when he actually murdered someone?
Good Lord. That was a panel of alleged experts discussing the recent case of Karmelo Anthony and the murder of Austin Metcalf. Kyle Rittenhouse did not kill any black people. All of his victims were white. And it seems that out of that entire panel of subject matter experts who are black, only one person was aware of that. Similarly, Daniel Penny, who did accidentally kill a black man on a New York subway, pled self-defense because he intervened due to that person making significant threats to him and others around him. A jury decided that he was not guilty for that reason. Now, Karmelo has similarly claimed that he acted out of self-defense. There's very little evidence of that thus far, but he is going to get due process and get his day in court to try to prove that. Very few people are arguing that he should not get his time in court to try to argue that defense. But what's crazy is for people in the black community to be arguing that he shouldn't be charged at all because he's black. Because somewhere in a country of 330 plus million people, somewhere there was a white guy who maybe killed a black guy and didn't get convicted. And the cases that they bring up don't even involve black victims. People have got to become a lot more careful about who they listen to and where they get their information, because a lot of people are not bothering to fact check before they pop off. That can create really toxic environments and worsen racial relations for no good reason.
Now, I think it kind of goes without saying that most of the people in that panel are complete idiots. And I already put out an entire video reacting to that panel. So go check out that video if you haven't already. But long story short, I kind of just talked about how portions of the black community, at least the portion that is supporting Karmelo, they live in kind of like a alternate reality from us. They're constantly getting brainwashed by the mainstream media. All of the content they consume, like the movies, TV shows, and the music they listen to, all of it is packed full with anti-white propaganda. There's all of this misinformation, a lot of it coming from like the left. And they live in like an alternate reality where they're constantly the victim of everything. White people are to blame for everything. And yeah, it's 2025, and they still think that Kyle Rittenhouse unalived 3 black kids. So when you're looking at the Karmelo Anthony case and you see all of these people spreading this misinformation, and they're living in an entirely different world than us when it comes to this case. We're following this case by the facts. They're following this case by whatever little stories they create in their little pockets of the internet or in their little communities. They're living in their alternate reality where Austin and his brother Hunter are racist bullies that go around robbing black kids at track meets, and they hurt his girlfriend and they broke his phone and they are stealing stuff from him. They live in this crazy, crazy reality that is so far removed from the truth that when you hit them with facts, they think you're being racist. They don't realize that you're just trying to tell them what is actually happening here on planet Earth and not in Wakanda or wherever the hell these people are in their mind. But anyways, I'm getting really tired of the comparisons when it comes to the Karmelo case. Everyone wants to compare it to the Kyle Rittenhouse case. They're acting as if Austin posed the same threat to Karmelo that the angry armed BLM mob posed to Kyle Rittenhouse. They're acting like Austin asking Karmelo to leave from under his team's tent is basically the same as a angry armed mob chasing down a kid through a city street during a violent protest. These two cases you can't compare them at all. Yeah, sure, Kyle claimed self-defense because it was. And yeah, sure, Karmelo is claiming self-defense even though it's not. But you can't compare these cases. If you really want to compare the Karmelo Anthony case to any other well-known case, you would have to compare it to the OJ Simpson case. That's the only case I would compare this case to. Because in both of these cases, everyone knows that the person is guilty. Everyone knows Karmelo is guilty. Karmelo admitted himself he was guilty. He says it's not alleged. He did it. His words, not mine. Everyone knew damn good and well OJ Simpson was guilty, but a lot of people wanted him to walk free. Why? Because he was black. Now, over the years, they tried to manipulate things and tried to make people believe, oh, no, it's just because OJ had all of this support, you see, because he was a football player. OJ had this support because he was on that one TV show. He was an actor. No. OJ had the support of the black community because he was black, not because he was innocent. They knew he was guilty just like everyone else. But they wanted him to get away with killing a white woman, just like the same community wants Karmelo to get away with killing a white kid. So if you want to compare the cases, I think we can compare those two cases. Because in both of these cases, there's a racial aspect at play here that is causing so much division, and we have people just being totally dishonest about the Karmelo case simply because of skin colors. If these people really believed that Karmelo was innocent, they wouldn't feel the need to create a new fake story, a new fake scenario every single day. They would just stick to the truth. But they know he's not innocent. They know he's guilty, which is why they're actively doing whatever they can to spread whatever lies they can. And the way that they're celebrating Karmelo is the same way they were celebrating OJ. And if Karmelo gets found not guilty, you're going to see them dancing in the streets just like they did when OJ Simpson got off. So if we're going to make comparisons, let's compare that. And just like the OJ Simpson case, much of Karmelo's defense is going to be all about race. Trying to make this all a conversation, a debate about racial issues here in America. So even the jury, who knows, just like the jury knew OJ Simpson was guilty, but they kind of felt the pressure to let him go. They felt the pressure to find him not guilty because of the racial tensions and the racial problems in America. And they're trying to do the same thing here, right? What we're witnessing is the early stages of them crafting this narrative. And what we're witnessing, and I keep saying this, and I'm going to keep saying it because it's happening, we're witnessing them try to poke, prod, and provoke. They want someone who is white to do something stupid, like in support of Austin Metcalf, or do something stupid, against Karmelo, or in the name of, raging out against Karmelo. They want something like that to happen. That's what they're waiting for. They want it so badly. And I hope no one gives it to them. Because the last thing we need is more violence and more stupidity. Trust me. We got plenty of stupidity in this case. There's plenty of stupidity coming from E.T. I mean, Karmelo's mom. We don't need any more ignorant behavior. We already have seen enough from Karmelo's parents. But they want it. They want something, right? They desperately need something to grasp on to. And there's a long road ahead of us, and they're going to keep trying their little shady tactics to ensure that they can flip the script. But someone else was also comparing this case to the OJ Simpson case. And I want to roll this clip so you can hear what he has to say really quickly. And then I'll be right back with more thoughts.
Karmelo Anthony is no different from OJ Simpson. Yeah, I said it. Now, I understand that we still have to go through trial. We still have to bring up the evidence, etc. Right? But as far as, let's just say, the evidence that we have thus far, which is the fact that there was a young man whose life was taken in a brutal way, and there is another young man who admits to committing that crime. Now, with OJ, he didn't even commit the crime, but you and I both know, I mean, who writes a book titled, "If I Did It, This Is How I Would Do It," right? So anyway, the reason why I say that Karmelo is indeed paralleled with OJ is because this is essentially a story of course, it has the foundation of quote unquote racism. But instead of the victim being the one who essentially has racism used against them, it is actually the perpetrator, right? I don't know if y'all remember the OJ case. Maybe you're not old enough to actually remember being there. I wasn't. I actually had to catch up as far as watching old footage, the show that came out. They'd done a movie and all sorts of stuff after the fact, right? But one thing I noticed was that there was an element of making the suspect or the perpetrator the victim, and he was the victim of racism. As a matter of fact, Johnny Cochran, right? One of the, I guess, greatest lawyers for all the wrong reasons as far as this case is concerned, used racism as the main point to say that these police officers were targeting OJ because he was a black man. And that's exactly what's taking place now with this propaganda around Karmelo Anthony.
And that is exactly the point that I've been making in all of these videos, which, by the way, if you've been enjoying the videos, consider supporting the channel by donating via Cash App or Super Thanks, or support the channel for free by liking the video, dropping a comment, sharing the video on social media. These are easy ways to support the channel. But like I was saying, this is a point that I've been making over and over again, and I will continue to make the point until it is fully driven home. That point being that there is such a huge effort here to paint Karmelo out to be the victim. Every couple of days, there's something else trying to paint Karmelo out to be the victim. Feel bad for Karmelo. Feel bad for Karmelo's family. Karmelo's family is going through this. These people are doing this to Karmelo's family. 24/7 around the clock since this story broke. We don't hear a damn thing about Austin Metcalf's family, but the Karmelo family is in the forefront. They're the victim, they're the victim, they're the victim. Now, when you tell a lie enough, when you lie enough, you begin to believe your own lies, right? So in many ways, there's like a form of psychological warfare being waged on the public right now. Because when you look at the case, you don't got to look deeply. It's obvious that Karmelo's not the victim. Karmelo, you stabbed someone in the chest and killed them. You're not the victim. You're still alive, right? Easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? But when you're constantly being bombarded with Karmelo's the victim, Karmelo's the victim, Karmelo's the victim, when the general public, who isn't necessarily as smart as a lot of us are, when the general public is being bombarded with this propaganda, even though they know in their mind that Karmelo isn't the victim, they almost start to view him as the victim, right? Because nonstop, they're just hit with all of this propaganda. Karmelo, feel bad for Karmelo. This is happening to Karmelo's family. And before you know it, people like like they might not even realize it themselves, but they're almost viewing Karmelo as the victim. They're like finding themselves sympathizing for Karmelo when they shouldn't be, but they're just hit with all of this propaganda, nonstop victim, 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 Karmelo's the victim. That eventually some of these people, even though they know better, they almost start buying into it themselves. Or even if they're not buying into it, they kind of just, I don't know, it's messing up the way that people are looking at things, right? You're just bashed nonstop over the head with this propaganda to where when you look at Karmelo, the first thing you think of is not that he stabbed someone in the chest. The first thing you think of is, oh, wait, I saw on the news that he's a victim of this. I saw his mom crying about this. They said he's getting threats here. And then, oh, what about the people who delivered pizza to his house, right? You got 70 different victim narratives spinning around Karmelo that a lot of people are going to think of first before they even think about the fact that, oh yeah, the reason why we're even thinking about Karmelo in the first place is because he stabbed someone at a track meet. But that's what I keep saying. This story it's gone off the rails, and it's kind of like so far removed from the actual crime that took place. 90% of the conversations that are being had, 90% of the conversations that are being had surrounding this case aren't really about the facts and details about this case. It's all about the crazy stuff surrounding it. And even here on this channel, we hardly have time to talk about the facts of the case because we're constantly, at war, fighting this battle, battling off misinformation, all of this fake stuff that people are spreading. So we're kind of like, how can I put it? Like, people like me, we're kind of on the ropes right now. We're not on the offensive, we're on the defensive, right? We're kind of on our back foot, walking backwards as the enemy, keeps pressing. And because of that, we haven't even had time to really dwell with the facts of the case because we're spending all of our time fighting all of this crazy information that is floating around. All of this crazy information that is floating around because people who know Karmelo's guilty are still supporting him. And instead of just blatantly supporting him for doing what he did, they want to create false narratives to try to make themselves feel better about their decision to support Karmelo. And a lot of this same stuff transpired with the OJ case as well, which is why if you're going to compare this case to any other case, that's the case to compare it to. Maybe not because of the facts and the details of the cases, but because of the overall chaos and the racial tensions surrounding the case, and how there's just a whole community of people who know that the person's guilty, but they'll find any excuse to say he's not, and they don't care, just because they have the same color skin. But hey, for now, you guys let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all very soon in the next one.